It's the Sittin Sportside podcast, exclusively on 1045theteam.com.
And welcome into the Sittin Sportside podcast preview of the NFC East. I'm Eric Hammond along with Cody Marshall. Cody, let's just jump right into it, right?
Why not?
NFC East. And we're gonna, you know how this is gonna go. Actually, let's talk to our listeners about how this is going to go. We're just gonna pick from 4 to 1, I guess, and we're probably gonna disagree on some. So it's gonna be certain times. So like if you pick the 3, that's my 4, or your 4 is my 3, something like that. We could stick to your 4 first, and then go and talk about it. I mean, whatever. Let's just jump right into it. Our 4th place team in the NFC East. You were just kind of talking to people on Facebook Live. Shout out to that. About how, you know, Eagles fans were going to be upset. So that makes me kind of have an inkling of what you're going to pick right now.
It's
for
a
your
really
4th
tough,
place team in the NFC
It's a really tough division to pick. You like the NFC East from a competitive standpoint, and really it's probably the only division that you look at and say, hey, all 4 teams in this division have a legitimate shot to get into the playoffs. Going right now, I think the Philadelphia Eagles may be the weakest team in the NFC East. I mean, I get it. They added all these guys. They added LeGarrette Blount in the backfield. They've had Darren Sproles now. He'll be in his 2nd or 3rd year with the team. Carson Wentz is in his 2nd year, and a lot of people like the young guy out of North Dakota State to finally put it together in his sophomore year. They lose Jordan Matthews to the Bills. I just don't see them getting over the hump right now. I think they're definitely still building. I think it's very close, but I just don't see them competing with the upper teams in that division. I think that
it is a really tough division, I think, to predict.
Right, and it seems like Washington's just always gotten the better of them. I used to think that Washington was the far and away worst team in that division, and then Kirk Cousins came along, and Kirk Cousins did Kirk Cousins things, and now Washington, I think, is a viable contender year after year.
They were close to the playoffs last year, and made the playoffs the year before.
And he does a great job keeping them right there, and that's why I think Washington's going to get the slight edge over Philadelphia as far as the 4th spot.
This one's tough. This one's really tough for me, and because I feel like I have a lot of fantasy players on the Washington Redskins. I'm going to agree with you, but you mentioned the trade of Jordan Matthews. I think they got a good piece from cornerback from the Buffalo Bills in Ronald Darby, so their defense is improving. Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith come in, so the loss of Jordan Matthews isn't going to be that big of a loss for them. So it really will all come down to, I think, it's going to come down to Carson Wentz and how great he can be in his 2nd year out of North Dakota State, because I just think that that's where it's going to come down to quarterback play, and I do think Kirk Cousins is going to continue to be a really good quarterback, I think, in this league, and really have a fine payday going in the next season.
Well, he needs to. I mean, there's so much motivation for Kirk Cousins. He's talked about how he doesn't want to be in Washington. I might as well go into who I think is going to be. Were you picking Philadelphia to be 4th?
I am picking Philadelphia to be 4th. It's just so hard, but that offensive line is actually, with a full Lane Johnson this year, they could be really good still. They could be. I mean, I think we already prefaced this podcast by saying this could be a really good team, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it at. As Philadelphia Eagles can be really good, but just right now at this juncture, I have to put them 4th because I like the top 2 teams in this division way too much, and I think that the Redskins are going to continue off the success of the offense of last year, even though they lost to Sean Jackson.
Yeah, you could look at this division and say, hey, the worst team's going to finish 7-9. That's just how it is, or maybe even 8-8.
Yeah.
I think these teams are that good. So 3rd, I'm going to go with the Washington Redskins. Kirk Cousins needs a good year. Number 1, he's talked about how he wants to get out of Washington. He's not happy that he's had to be franchised 2 years in a row. His former offensive coordinator and coach in Kyle Shanahan is now in San Francisco, and he's talked about how he wants to reunite with him. This is a year that he can use to have a good performance and earn himself more money from a team that wants to pay him instead of just basically holding him prisoner with a franchise tag, like Washington's done. The problem with Washington is they need to realize they've got a good thing right now, and I think they're just kind of like, we want to keep him, but we still don't think he's the real deal. And that's where I think that Kirk Cousins is getting the short end of the stick. And so now they've added Jamison Crowder.
Well, they had him last year as well. But, I mean,
who's
in an expanded role. They brought in Terrell Pryor, senior. I mean, that's what these guys do nowadays.
Dotson's the rookie wide receiver out of TCU.
Yeah,
I knew there was a rookie wide receiver.
Well, he's not a rookie. He's a 2nd year, but he didn't get that much time last year.
Because he got hurt.
Right. So he's essentially essentially a rookie. But yeah.
Did he play enough games to qualify as a rookie last year?
I don't think that's. I don't
not
think
a thing in
MLB
the NFL?
is different than
not a thing in the NFL.
I don't think it's a thing in the NFL.
All right.
It's still okay. It's still okay. I know. I understand what you're saying. So that's the big question, right? Like Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon on paper, that's a big loss. But Jamison Crowder and Terrell Pryor step right into those, and then Doxson as the 3 could be really good for them too. I think the running game now solidified with Rob Kelly, Chris Thompson, and then the rookie out of this guy's a real rookie. Okay, Cody, Samaje Perine. Shout out to Mike James.
Everybody's looking at me saying this kid's a real rookie on the microphone right now.
Well, shout out to Mike
Eric's
James though, because he's a big Oklahoma fan. I wanted to bring in Samaje Perine. But I think that this is a team that could take off offensively. But that being said, what if those people we just mentioned don't really work out, and the loss of Jackson and Garçon are big? That could, who knows? But I'm a believer in Kirk Cousins and this offense, and the defense I think will be good enough as well.
Yeah.
Enough with the 3-4 teams. Last thing on the Redskins.
I just think that they got rid of Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon at good times. They're guys who are older. They're going to be retiring within the next few years, I'm sure. And you can't keep them forever. I mean, you'd rather take the young guys who are going to continue to develop over, what you're going to get from Deshaun Jackson, Pierre Garçon. And if they go down, well, then you've got to find some replacement for them. So I like the idea of going with the young guns, and we can move on to the top 2 in this division.
All right, top 2 in this division, and everybody seems to have these teams probably at the top 2 in the division for sure. Do you want me to go first with this?
Sure.
So I think since we are down to the final 2, we will pick our division winner first, and then talk about the other team as well. All right. So I'm picking the division winner for the NFC East division winner. The New York Football Giants is my division winner in this, and I think after planning out the rest of this, I'm going to have Dallas as one of my wild card teams.
I had the Giants until about 10 seconds ago when I thought about the running game.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to go with Dallas, and I wish I could put an asterisk next to this because the only thing that took Dallas out of it to begin with was the suspension to Ezekiel Elliott. Now, we still don't know how long that's going to be.
It could be non-existent. That's
exactly
how crazy this is getting.
So then you look at, okay, well, let's assume he is suspended. Then Darren McFadden's probably your go-to running back.
With Alfred Morris still there as well.
And you'd probably take both of those guys over Paul Perkins. I would. I don't even know who Paul Perkins is. And the Giants,
second year running back out of UCLA.
Year after year after year, just don't have a solid run game. That's the one thing that the Giants have been missing for probably the last 2 or 3 years. Has been a consistent running back.
That's 100% true. I think the emergence, though, of Sterling Shepard as the 3 and the bringing in a guy like Brandon Marshall can open up the passing game enough to actually make Shane Vereen what the Giants wanted him to be when they brought him in a couple of years ago. The guy who can catch the ball out of the back, a true third down back to check down three-line Manning, that could be a big part of it. And I do like, and I know Paul Perkins is their main back. I like Perkins, but I also think Wayne Gallman, the rookie out of Clemson, the champion rookie out of Clemson, could be a huge part of that running game for them at some point mid-season. So I'm suspect on that running game too, but I think there's enough there for them to get enough production out of the running back position to not have to necessarily rely on the passing game. But I think this should be focused on the passing game offense for sure. And the defense could be one of the best in the NFC, if not the NFL. That's how good this defense is. Jack Rabbit, JPP, Olivier Vernon, a lot of just great players on that Giants defense. That's why I'm going with the Giants, because I think their defense is just that much better than the Cowboys, whose defense might have overperformed last year. We can talk about them in a little bit, or you can give your last little moment on the Giants here.
Well, we've talked about how we had our fantasy picks for everything, who we thought were going to be busts, who we thought were going to be sleepers. And unanimously, I think almost across the board, people were picking Dak Prescott as a quarterback bust. And not because we don't think he's going to have a good year. It's because we just don't think he's going to repeat what he did last year, because everybody has film on him now. They've had a year to study up on him. And he still has some good targets to throw to. I mean, Jason Witten, Dez Bryant. The only problem with those two is they're starting to get towards the latter part of their career. So, again, injuries come into play, performance speed, these younger cornerbacks matching up on them. But I think that the Cowboys still have just too many pieces left over from a team that looked like they were going to be Super Bowl contenders a year ago. And I think that's what's going to push them over the edge in the NFC East.
That's a good answer. I like it. That's why I have them as one of my wild card. I can't count out the Dallas Cowboys because of how great that offensive line is. And the defense did perform pretty well last year. I think it might have overperformed. They lose Mo Claiborne. But that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Yeah, no,
Do you think that division could get 3 playoff teams in?
There's a potential for that. I do. I'm not going to pick it. I have one other team that I like that I think that I'm going to put into the playoffs. But 100%, I do think that this division could. But then again, they could hurt each other, you know, if you will, because they had to play each other twice a year, and that could come down to the final week where some other team might have an easier division that they can take 2 games from, and a team like the Redskins might split with the Eagles, and therefore one of those teams might not make it.
There's just something that popped in my head because you look at this conference up and down. I don't think the West is strong enough to send 2 teams. The South is questionable. That's probably the hardest division to pick from in general.
The North,
you probably have that team that you
and they did
end
send
up
2
splitting
last year.
with. So, but no, it's definitely a possibility in the NFC East to send 3 playoff teams.
All right, so we have our first division preview out of the way. This is the NFC East. You can check out the rest of them on 1045theteam.com and youtube.com/team1045. For Cody Marshall, I've been Eric Hammond here on the Sittin Sportside podcast.